Today, we're setting out on an epic journey driving from Edmonton to Calgary without touching the main highway. Instead, we'll be taking Alberta's infamous Forestry Trunk Road, also known as Highway 40. This backroad adventure winds us across the province, deep into the heart of Alberta's wilderness, through nothing but dirt roads, remote terrain, and some truly incredible sights. But it's not all smooth sailing. Between the constant on and off rain, slow going trails, and the increased risk of running low on fuel, this trip is going to be a lot tougher than it looks.
And with Edmonton in a rear view mirror, this first part of the drive is, well, nothing interesting. We're just on the highway, making our way from the main highway off to the secondary highway, eventually taking us to Highway 40, where the real fun begins.
And it wasn't long before we turned off the main highway and headed into the wilderness.
And now on the side highway, we get a little bit different of a view than we're typically used to when we're driving through places like the prairies or even as we get into BC. Northern Alberta is definitely a little bit different. So we've kind of got a mix of what's considered like a spruce and there's some birch tree and stuff, but it's very finely put together and a little bit different. You can kind of see there's a wide swath of land where the road is, where they have the power lines, and then a very rough paved road. You can kind of hear like almost chattering along, and it's almost like they just haven't paved it in a very long time. So it's definitely not what you'd expect, but kind of what you'd expect out here. So as I said, definitely not the Alberta we're used to, but being more remote and rural, kind of what you'd expect to see out here. That said, we have still got a little bit of a drive on this road before we go ahead and hit where the fun begins. We're going to be hitting the Highway 40, but before we do that, we got to do a couple things before we get on the road and start enjoying the views from there. With the rain coming down, we are officially on the 40, or also known as Highway 40. So this is going to take us down into Norday, and then eventually what we'll be doing is continue along the 40, heading into Ghost public land and so forth. So this is definitely what you'd consider the back way from Edmonton to Calgary, because you can just hit the main highway. But this is a much more scenic view. As you can already tell, it is much different than the main highway with regards to kind of the scenery. That said, we are going to be hitting gravel sooner than later, so this isn't just your casual like Sunday drive with any type of car. It does get a little gravelly, and there's a couple spots where it gets a little bit interesting. So we'll see those later on, but for now we're going to continue moving along here. Once we hit gravel, we're actually going to be airing down, as I was talking about. I'm crossing my fingers that we're going to hit the 40 on the gravel when the rain has stopped, but we'll have to see, because we kind of drove right into this dark cloud, and I'm not sure how far south this cloud goes. So we'll just have to see and keep on moving.
But it wasn't long before we hit the dirt.
And well, just after the Coal Valley mine, we officially hit, well, it's kind of mud, but we're going to be pretty much on the dirt for the rest of the trip until we hit the end of kind of beachlands and wipers area. So we're going to be airing down right now because it makes sense to air down and have a little bit more comfortable ride as we hit the very gravelly and well wet trail at this time. Okay, so we're aired down and we're ready to hit the 40 in a little bit more comfort. It's still sprinkling a little bit. Thankfully, the roads aren't as muddy as they were when we first entered the 40. But the road here is absolutely amazing. If you like a little bit of a windy dirt road, highly recommend this. This is exactly what you're looking for. And you get some pretty good views as you kind of snake around the rivers and kind of go through. There's a lot of actually like provincial campsites and provincial sites to check out as you're going along here. With that said, there's also just random like roads that go off. Okay, that one's close. But some of them are random roads that just go off and allow you to go find some amazing campsites. I definitely want to check out this area more and explore it, but you definitely have to do it in a couple day trips. Like that one right there, I don't know where that goes, but my map shows it kind of going up the ridgeline and up to the river. So I bet there's some really good camping there. But today's goal is going from Edmonton to Calgary on, well, a little more of a scenic and enjoyable drive rather than your highway. So with that being said, we're going to continue along here. It is important to note that depending on when you do this, there might be active logging. That's why up here I have the radio monitoring as well as my radio down below. And it will give you the frequencies if you are going during an active log day. The only day I don't believe they do any active logging is on Sundays, and well, that's what we're doing today. So we shouldn't have to worry about it, but it's always good to monitor your radios. Unlike the forestry service roads like out in BC where they are a radio controlled road and you're using the radio to make sure you're not going to run into anyone, anyone's not going to run into you. This road isn't like that, so you don't have to worry about that as much. But be aware, they do a lot of active logging, like, well, right here. So we're going to continue along and make the most of this and enjoy the epic views. I didn't expect there to be that much water in the ditches that it was actually overflowing onto the road. There was a lot of rain that moved through this area very recently, but I didn't think that it would be washed out like that, which was always an interesting experience. Knowing it was a road, I wasn't too worried about it, but obviously if you're in like a bone stock car or something, I guess you probably wouldn't be doing this, but it would be a little bit concerning. That said, we are coming out of the first section, what I would consider, where we come through Norday. Once we're through Norday, we're kind of going through the Red Deer River area, which it looks like there is more rain that way, so we'll have to see. We're going to be driving through another rainstorm. And I'm gonna say the views are a lot more epic out here compared to where we started. We're at a much more mountainous area where we're kind of going up, down into the valley, over the river, and then back up again, and we get some pretty epic views. We've had some pretty epic views, but we hit the rain once again. Although, that might be the least of our worries, because I'm starting to run a little bit of a calculation in our head. We're just below half a tank. We are currently sitting in not any of the public land use zones, so we're still north. We're pretty much straight across of red deer right now, and we have to get through a lot of crown land still, which it takes about 2 hours from red deer to Calgary, or just a little under that. The thing is, we're not doing 110 on the highway. We're doing like 60 to 80 and using a lot more fuel. And our route is not straight. It kind of goes back and forth. So we haven't even hit some of my pins that I was hoping to hit around this time. We're about 100 kilometers off. So I'm starting to run some calculations in my head and wondering how we're doing so far. And I don't think it's looking good. So let me show you on the map here. Looking at the map here, this leaves a question. What is our plan? The plan was for this video to be a trip from Edmonton to Calgary the Scenic way. And well, we headed from Edson all the way down south, and we actually filled up in Edson. So why we're under half a tank, I'm actually kind of curious, because we've only got 217 kilometers, and I can do at least 450 on a tank. So I know I'm aired down a little, but that shouldn't consume all that fuel. So it does leave a couple questions. So with that being said, do we continue down to the 40 and then eventually make it all the way into Ghost? That is ultimately the goal. What I think the best plan of attack right now is we want to kind of have a contingency. You always want to have a backup plan when you're doing these kind of adventures. And well, I think I'm kind of on my backup plan right now. So the backup plan is to continue along here. Once we hit where it turns off from the 40 to Highway 584 that goes into Sundre, that's where we make our decision, because Sundre isn't that far off of the 40 by that point. Do we continue down and make our way into Ghost and then eventually into Calgary, or do we go ahead and try to hit Sundre and then head down from there? That is kind of what we're evaluating at this point. So that means that we're going to continue moving on. Will we make it? Well, we're just gonna have to see.
Coming back down the hill, the landscape changed once again, now opening into a beautiful meadows.
And you just can't get enough of these views out here. As we kind of came through the clouds, we kind of broke into this meadow area, and it's absolutely amazing. There's so many beautiful spots to take photos. I've probably taken like 100 photos in the last 10 kilometers. With that being said, we're already looking at 9 p.m. So with that a little bit slower of a pace, we are way behind schedule now. We are definitely not going to be able to do the Edmonton to Calgary drive on the 40 in just one day, and we're definitely not doing it today. I'm actually sitting at just above a quarter of a tank now, so we're going to have to be turning off the road and making our way back to civilization. So this was a little bit of a teaser to what you'll have to see in another upcoming video, because I'm definitely going to have to do this again with a little more time and well, a lot more fuel. Even though we didn't get to do the whole trail, we still got some pretty amazing places to explore. It's pretty amazing views, so I can't really complain, and I hope you guys are enjoying this video. That said, we're actually not done yet. We're going to try to get to the highway before dark, so you're just going to have to see if we're going to make it. But that's kind of the call I'm going to make now.
With the sun now dipping below the mountains, we kept our pace on the ever-winding dirt roads.
And that is where we came from. So as you can see on that sign, we were coming from Nordegg. Actually, we were way farther north than Nordegg. That was kind of the place where we crossed the highway. That was over 100 kilometers ago. And well, that was almost like 2.5 hours ago. So this trip definitely takes a little bit longer than I was expecting. So we're at kind of a critical decision here. This is where the road turns off. We have two decisions. We can keep on driving to Calgary, which really will be many hours, many hours, at least probably 3 or 4 more at this rate. And obviously, with a quarter tank of fuel, not really possible. So we can't really go straight that way. So that means that we're gonna have to turn off, take this road, this highway, and head to Rocky Mountain House. From Rocky Mountain House, then we can hit the highway, straight shot to Calgary, and have no worries. Well, obviously getting fuel and making it back to Calgary, hopefully before midnight. That said, we did leave Edmonton area at around, it was around like 3. So take that into consideration if you want to do this epic journey from Calgary or from Edmonton to Calgary on the 40. Unfortunately, we won't be doing it in this video, but we did get some epic views and well, we marked a lot of spots that we got to explore later on. So we'll just have to do that in a video. That said, the video's not done yet, so let's keep on going and try to make it to Rocky. And right there is the asphalt, something we haven't seen in almost 5.5 hours. So obviously we got to go ahead and we'll air up the Forester. So we're filling up the tires with the compressor and then we're going to hit the road, get some gas, and then make a straight line back towards Calgary. But it's kind of nice to see asphalt again.
It is extremely foggy.
There we go. We have gas. We made it to Rocky Mountain House and we are back on the pavement. So that was our failed attempt at going from Edmonton to Calgary on the 40. It just takes a little more time and well, a lot more fuel than I was expecting. So you know we got to do that again. Let me know what you thought about today's adventure and if you've ever tried this or are you gonna try it yourself? And while you're down there, don't forget to go ahead and check out Flat for Off-Road for all your adventure Subaru needs, as well as the channel memberships for some exclusive perks, including a members only post that I'll be posting about why we were up in Edmonton in the first place and how the Flat 4 booth went at the Alberta Outdoor Adventure Expo. And with that being said, we'll be seeing you guys in our next adventure.